Jeffrey's been.
You say mountains are trees?
Mountains are trees. Yes.
What?
Bonus theory.
Excuse me. Sorry, I was just cutting the tension.
Did we scare
Startling.
Who is that voice?
Well, welcome back to Conspiracy Happy Hour.
Yes.
This is a fun one.
This is our happy hour special, our
excited.
first happy hour special.
Yes.
Oh.
We have a special guest who is
Can't
going
keep
to
him out.
be doing a surprise. We don't know what the conspiracy is on this one. Our guest has...
No, this is our first happy hour special, so I guess we should tell people what we have planned for it.
Yes.
My name is Guest. Guest 1.
Hey, Guest.
No, my name is Derek. Should I tell them where I'm from? Not like my house. Do you want
I
to know
live
my
at
address?
Hold up, let me
Great.
get my notepad. What is your social security number? Date of birth, mother's maiden last name.
We've already talked about like the fact that we live in Jersey and stuff. So.
Okay, who I am, why I'm here. I'm here by force.
Yes.
Nobody knows, but we kind of like kidnapped him yesterday and forced him into our basement to record with.
Yeah, no one will know until this episode comes out, which will be like a few months from now.
It's the real conspiracy.
Yes, but yeah, feel free to give as much information about yourself as you want.
Great, because I have nothing to like reference, so I guess this is the ground level for your guest episode.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah, you are the benchmark. So
good.
It
It
can
only
either
goes up from here.
if you never hear this again, or there's no more guests.
This is why.
So again, my name is Derek, and I am on a podcast with you, Dan.
Me?
Called Geckos and Grottos. It's another podcast on the network. I love conspiracies. I am an avid user of the internet. It consumes way too much of my time, less now than it used to. But I've gotten myself deep into a lot of rabbit holes and conspiracies and spooky stories and everything like that. So
Are you one of the believers?
Depends on what theory we're talking about. Sometimes I'm a believer and sometimes I'm a skeptic. I'm never a not believer because you can't fully
Write off
everything
Mm-hmm.
unless it's completely crazy and outlandish and just like wouldn't make any sense. But then again, who knows? So
Who knows?
Yeah, there's a lot that we don't know. A lot of government cover-ups, I feel like. Dangerous world.
the government is a dangerous rabbit hole to get into because that one goes to some scary
I don't want to get
places.
banned already. So,
I already got one letter from them.
your FBI letter.
Oh my God.
I don't want to get a real one this time.
Yeah, so I'm a huge lover of conspiracies and all things paranormal and crazy. So
Awesome.
this show appeals to me a lot, and I wanted to be on it. So
Love that.
I found my way here.
Love that.
Yes.
Yes.
Purely against my will.
Fingers
Help.
crossed.
Help me.
Yeah.
Help me.
Fingers crossed.
That was
Fingers crossed it was against his will.
No, well, no. See, I was referring to the fingers crossed as remember you're a kid and you were like,
Oh,
put
you're,
your
like,
fingers
lying?
crossed behind
Yeah.
your back because you were lying.
I really hope he was kidnapped. Well, for legal reasons, he was.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is my house.
The most fun kidnapping I've ever experienced.
Yes.
It's a good
Yes,
one.
we brought a drink for you.
Yes, it
Yes.
comes with drinks.
It does.
So our whole goal or how we plan to set up the happy hour specials, our guest is going to be bringing the conspiracy that they won't tell us ahead of time. So when Dan and I are telling our conspiracies and we don't know what we're doing, we don't know what our guest is doing either. We are building a cocktail based off of
Basic information.
and then when our guest, Derek, you're going to be naming this creation. You've already tasted it.
It's delicious.
It's delicious, strong,
It's strong. And
just the
it's
way we
sweet.
like it.
Mm-hmm.
If you could give our cocktail a name, what would you name it?
We can call it, and it shouldn't be distasteful to call it this. We can call it because it's a mudslide. That's the basics of what the drink is. We'll call it the Tartarian mudslide.
Tartarian mudslide. Okay. I may not remember the Tartarian part of it.
Well, it's a good thing that this is being recorded.
That's very true.
You will after you hear the conspiracy theory, the theory that I brought with me.
Yes.
So it will all make sense.
I can't wait.
Dan and I plan to have some of these cocktails that we're featuring on our Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have a certain tier devoted to our
To alcoholism.
our recipe book, if you will. So we will be posting photos of our cocktail on our Instagram. And if you want to know how to make it, you have to join our
subscribe.
Patreon. Now, we got to get our shit together and we got to finalize our Patreon and announce it to all of you. But for right now, just know that that's coming and it's in the works.
How many episodes have you said that in now?
The second.
I think it's two. Yeah.
Just two.
This would be
Okay.
the second.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, like, progressively, we're getting.
The Patreon does exist. It's patreon.com/conspiracy happy hour.
There
It's
you
just
go.
not published yet.
No, it's published.
Oh, it is.
We
There's
just don't have tiers yet.
Oh.
So you
okay.
have like the basic
I
slate.
see.
we have
of-
2 tiers.
Oh, we already. Okay. Never mind.
Allison, stop talking.
Sh-
we just have 2 tiers. It's just one's called the believers and one's called the non-believers. They're just basic tiers to support us at the moment because, like Allison said, it's not finalized.
So it
So,
wasn't wrong. We don't really have anything good yet.
well, you weren't right.
So
Okay,
it's a
look.
starting level for
Yes.
people to get in, and
Yes.
there's nothing.
And it's just a tier that you like the show and you like to support us. And then, of course, once we develop it out further, we'll have higher tiers that we can have
we'll
other
offer
stuff,
happy hours with us and
Yeah,
our cocktail recipes.
maybe
we'll
a live
offer-
monthly live.
Yeah.
We'll have our recipe book posted
So-
evenally.
We're
That's
brainstorming.
exciting.
We're in
That's
the
exciting.
brainstorming. Yeah.
I might go sign up as a believer
Love
or
that.
non-believer.
Or non-believer.
Yeah.
Are they the same right now? Like the tiers?
They
They're
are.
the same. It's just what you want to support.
Okay.
Are you a
I see.
believer?
They're
or
literally the
believer?
same except for the title.
Or we should call it like glass half full. Maybe.
Yeah.
What we normally do to start out our podcast, every episode, we do a Mandela effect fact of the day.
There should be some cool sound effect.
I don't know why. That is the only time. Yeah. That is the only time I've been able to say that correctly. I think I stumble over my words every time. It's a tongue twister. Try to say it.
I think it's the drink.
Doesn't work. No, it's just my head. My brain doesn't work that way.
Ooh, that was a strong sip.
It's like, will you get ice cream? Will it be pure alcohol?
This one I have heard before, and Sex and the City. I've never watched the show, but everybody that I've always heard talk about it, even seeing advertisements for like the movie and all that, I swear to God, it said Sex in the City.
In instead of
Instead of and.
Okay.
Does anybody do you remember watching the show or do you remember hearing it one way?
Wait, which way is it? Which way is right?
Sex and the City. That's
No.
the actual title.
I've seen episodes, and I've even just always called it Sex in the City.
I don't know if it's because that is how I saw it, or I just hearing everybody say Sex in the City, or hearing people say Sex and the City and then thinking they're saying Sex in the City. So I don't know, but I just don't ever remember anybody going Sex and the City.
It could be like our weird accent.
Yeah.
That's possible.
It
Yeah.
could be like a dialect thing, like Sex in the City, like could be a butchering of the word and.
In and?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the pronunciation?
Pronunciation,
Okay,
yeah.
I was like, wait a
So
minute.
I have not too long ago watched pretty much all of Sex and the City. So I have a stronger recollection of it being called Sex and the City.
Okay.
That's a fun fact. I like that series. It was pretty good.
I've never seen it yet, but I hear it's so good. I really
Did you watch all the movies?
do want to try.
I don't know. Actually, I think I did watch all the movies. There's
Wait,
two
how
of
many
them,
movies
right?
are there?
I don't know.
I think there's two.
I
of
know there's a
them.
couple.
At first forced to watch it, and then I was just like, well, I just like this.
I need to see if they're going to be together.
But as a kid, my oldest brother used to watch it a whole lot. My parents and my family. So, but I didn't watch it then. And I feel like from when I was a child, I remember it being Sex in the City. But I think when I think about that, if I were to put my critical thinking on, it would be that, well, maybe I just misheard it as a kid and that's just what I believed.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that I remember as a kid that just didn't pan out the way
Yes.
that they do now as an adult.
And that seems to be most of the Mandela effects that we've gone over so far.
Yeah.
Right.
You think about it one way. It's probably because you've heard it one way.
And you just okay.
Yeah.
I was never allowed to watch the show when I was growing up.
Too risque.
I was not allowed to watch
We
this.
didn't have
or
HBO. We're poor.
I feel it's on the same equivalent. It's like Will and Grace and all those type of shows where it was a raunchy sitcom.
I don't think
I had a
Will and Grace is as raunchy as Sex in the City.
I don't know. I never saw it. I never saw it.
That was on like Thursday night on NBC.
Was it?
Sex
Never
and
saw
the City
it.
was HBO, so
Yeah.
much more risque.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like I
a
should.
paywall to get through.
In my adult life, I feel like I need to get caught up.
Or you should watch Will and Grace. It's a great show.
All right, that'll be my next binge.
It's your homework, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can figure out who Megan Mullally is.
Oh, was she on the show?
Yes.
Well, this makes so much sense. We had a conversation. I don't
We
even
did
know
have
if
a
we were
conversation.
recording. Yeah, I'm not even sure if we were recording at the time, but we had like a Megan Mullally and
Nick Offerman conversation.
yeah, about their podcast, and I had no idea who either one of those people were. The name sounded familiar, but anyway, I digress.
Well, should we get into our guest story?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Derek,
I hope
please
I'm as
tell
ready
us-
as I think I am.
Please tell us.
Yes.
Because I've been trying to figure out, based off of your clue, what
I have no
this
idea.
conspiracy
Someone's at the
is.
top of a mountain pushing rocks. Over.
I have zero idea. Please enlighten us.
Wonderful. So, have you heard of Tartary?
No.
Is that a location?
A turtle?
Yes. Yeah. Tartaria.
Tartuga?
Is that a country?
Or a group of people referred to as Tartars or anything like that?
No.
No.
Wow. Well, then you have been subjected to mind control and forget the history.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I forget a lot of history.
So my theory is it's actually relatively new conspiracy theory. It's not one that goes way back to whatever time that what takes place in the theory goes back in time to ancient time even. But their claims only go back as far as like as close as like 100, 200 years. But the theory didn't start until about 2016 is when
Oh, wow.
it really
So it's
came
relatively
to-
new.
Yeah. and-
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Super new. And it didn't really gain any real traction or attention until about December of 2018. So it's,
wow.
it's really only a few years in the making. But that's why this is such a very interesting theory, is because it's only been around for a short amount of time. However, it has recently, especially now in 2022, gained a ton of attention and a ton of traction, and has people fully believing in it, erasing what they knew about history to replace it with this new history that they think they've discovered, based on some of these very loose ideas. And it's kind of astonishing that it starts, at least in my opinion, around the time between 2016 2018 is when it really gained traction. But that's a whole nother conversation. So the theory is Tartaria and the mud floods.
Ooh.
And that's where the drink ties into it being a mudslide.
That was our clue, mudslide. So
I kind of like the name Mudflood too.
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
mud
this is
flood.
definitely a flood of alcohol, so it is very good. Mud flood. So maybe that is its new name, the mud flood.
mudflood. It's easier for me to remember because I
Oh, yeah.
already don't
And it's fun to
remember our
say.
original
It is
name.
fun. It's like Mudblood.
It's probably not fun to experience,
No.
but it's fun to say.
I love a good mud flood.
Who doesn't? So here's the basics of the theory, and then I'll try to get a little bit more into it and go alongside some of the like evidence and things that try to support it. Because as most conspiracies go, or at least a good portion of them, once you really start digging and picking at the scabs of this one, it kind of unravels. So here's the basics. The theory is, in its base form, it doesn't come from like historians or geologists or anything like that. It comes from the internet. It's almost entirely hosted on the internet, though now there are a couple of books written about it. The one book I was actually looking into as a reference, I was like, I should buy this to like look into it. And then I like read about the synopsis, and it's like, it talks around the idea of a mud flood in Tartaria and then like interjects some sort of story. And I was like, well, I'm not about like the fiction part
I was
of
going to
it.
say it's
Yeah.
a fiction book. It's
Yeah.
not nonfiction.
But it like draws from it. In early 2016 is when the theory, the videos started to come out. There's maybe
So
one
there's video
user.
on it.
Yeah. There's video of people talking about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Nothing like this is the evidence.
Documented.
This happened.
This is a mud flood.
This is it. Here is it happening right now. Nothing like that. But the video started around 2016, and then for a little while the videos didn't have any attention to it, and in 2018 it spiked, and then from there it's just kind of gotten out of control. You can actually, if you use like, this is really great for like picking around conspiracy theories, is your Google Trends and looking at like how people are looking into it, thinking about how far back it goes, all that kind of stuff. to today, it has garnered millions of clicks and has devout believers who truly believe that the world was reset in the 1800s. It's so not that long ago. Like, that's recent history. That
Yeah.
you wouldn't call that ancient history. It's a long time ago. It's beyond any of our age, but it is not so long ago that it should be forgotten. And like things like this.
Yeah, it could be in a book.
Right, exactly. So sometime in the 1800s, there was a great disaster known as the mud floods. It is believed that also around this time that there was a massive global superpower known as Tartaria. And that Tartaria took up most of the world. Like, it spread from Russia to China to the U.S. It was they were everywhere.
So was that considered like a race or like a race of people?
Yes and no. So it was considered a advanced civilization, and there was a race of people who were the Tartars or the Tartarians that they believe. It gets a little bit crazier. So I'm glad you asked, because they believe that some of the people who inhabited Tartaria were actually giants.
Okay.
So again, this theory has a lot of things going in, like, that people are kind of like pulling into it from, because there's a whole other theory of giants that's already kind of existing out there, that giants walked the earth at some point, and in ancient past, and people are covering it up for some reason. So that has to play a little bit in this. So believers often question to like attach the giants to it. Why are old buildings so big? Why do they have such big doors?
Like the Pantheon and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like big passageways, giant steps, and like you think about things like the pyramids and like how did people
How'd
build
they
that?
build them? Yeah.
Right. It had to have been giants.
Stonehenge.
They still don't know who put Stonehenge there.
It was giants.
It's giants. They went boop,
Picked it up and
picked
put
up
it
rock here and threw it.
I
over
mean,
there.
the theory about giants starting to make more and more sense now anyway, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that talk about giants. So that'll be exciting to hear about at some point in the future. So the main idea, to elaborate, was about 200 years ago or so, there was a global reset caused by a worldwide mud flood that covered the entire world. The entire world was covered in mud.
God.
Most of the inhabited land covered in mud. But the thing is, it's not like a ton of mud. It's
So
very
we're only like an
interesting.
inch deep of mud.
So the Bible was wrong. It wasn't water. It was mud.
Well, a lot of the people who believe, the believers, point to the flood as another reset event. Like they believe that there is multiple great resets in our human history. The flood being one of them, the Tower of Babel being another one.
Okay.
And some other big events. They may even consider like the World Wars as a reset event as well. Any event where a group of people are displaced or removed from history or anything like
Like our
that.
current pandemic.
Yeah, sure. The Great Reset. I mean, that's a whole nother QAnon level of like crazy theory.
Dun,
but
dun, dun. It's not the Great Resignation.
It's the Great Reset.
It's the Great Reset.
It's the next one. So,
I think I'm a little drunk off this drink already.
really, I need to drink more then.
Yes. Loosen or not loosen your palate.
Be loose like your straw.
Get libate. This is a very floppy fudge straw.
Our straws are like the inflatable flappy arm man people.
It's a silicone straw, people.
It is a silicone straw. It's very floppy. That is very alcoholic. I got nothing but a sip of alcohol in that. It must be like the vodka settling.
I think if you
I tried to mix up the ice cream a
I'm
little
stirring.
bit. Yeah.
I'm stirring mine up.
It's still very delicious. It's just very strong. It wasn't that strong at the beginning. Now I have to backtrack a little bit. So it covered the world in a few meters of mud, and this event was so catastrophic that we completely lost Tartaria and its giant inhabitants. Following this event, another group of people vying for power took the initiative and essentially, through control of information, wiped Tartaria and its history from the face of the earth, covering it up so that they might assume control of power, and which of course they did, as that group of people is us. The modern human, the modern society, is who assumed control after the Tartarians.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When did you say this was supposed to take place?
1800s.
In the 1800s.
Okay.
Probably it actually Tartaria was assumed to exist up all the way up until possibly like the end of the 1800s, at the beginning of the 1900s, and that and I'll talk more about this, but that the world wars and things were used to kind of cover it up and erase it and just like
as like
finish the job.
Fake memory type of thing, or fake point in history, so that you're not thinking.
So like modern humans lived alongside the Tartarians.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the Tartarians weren't all giants, but there were giants.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
There were some small ones. There were some big ones.
exactly. And when we think of giants, and when the evidence that they use is like, have you ever seen like the world's tallest man to have ever existed? He's like 8'11" or
Yeah.
something like that. They use like pictures of him because he looks old timey in those pictures. He's dressed in like old timey clothes. He's not modern in any way. But that didn't take place that long ago.
Yeah, because he has to wear like a sheet because he's
Oh my God! Really?
Oh,
so
no, he just wears really big clothes.
he just suffered from gigantism, which affects like a very small amount of people. But that's oftentimes like what they can point to, and I don't know if it's just like this is a similar like this is what you would expect to see, or this is a giant. This was the he was the last one.
I was gonna say he is the last of the giants.
Yeah, like when they're saying giant, I mean, there are people, like you said, that exist that are this tall, but what is their...
Shaq.
I was gonna say it's just a team
Yeah.
of basketball players.
So, like, I mean, like, at this point right now, I'm 5'2". I would consider them both giants.
Right.
Like, so I guess it just depends on, like, where your
It was a
parameters...
a civilization of NBA
Associate.
players.
Yeah.
They had the
Anybody's a
best
giant
basketball
to
team.
me.
That's why they ruled the world.
Yeah.
They ruled it through
They had to be taken
basketball.
out.
Can't stand it anymore. We
Yeah.
keep losing.
It was the
Giants.
1800s.
They're all
They,
like foot 11.
they didn't even know what basketball was yet, but they were like, "We got to get these people out of here."
We have this sport idea, and they're going to be a complication.
Yeah, we like to throw things into a basket over there, but these people, no.
Too tall, gotta go. And only a few select people are privy to the knowledge and real history behind Tartary and its giants inhabitants, and of course its untimely demise. So that is the whole gist of it, that there was a great reset in the 1800s that took place supposedly around the end of the 1800s, beginning of the early 1900s, that there was this great, powerful country or civilization known as Tartary. They spread across the entire world, and because of this cataclysm, we were able to push them out and erase them from history. So, why? You have to ask yourself a lot of questions when you're looking and reading into conspiracies. Like, why is one of the first ones? Like, why would we keep that history silent? Why does that matter? And what do they have that proves any of this? So let's get into the evidence, because the evidence,
those are always my favorite to...
the evidence is wild. And like I said, as soon as you start picking at the scabs, and it just falls apart. So the mud flood side of this theory is easy to start with, because it's both the simplest to explain and also offers some curious rabbit holes to explore. In the bulk of my reading, I found that most people who describe the mud floods point to old photographs of buildings and of construction happening on the roads. They look at the photos of cities like St. Petersburg in Russia, or Salt Lake City, Utah, and describe buildings that have looked to have sunken into the ground. They'll show photos of windows half above ground that what you or I just look like windows to let in light into the basement, similar to like what's going on over here. But they'll show pictures of like old buildings, like in modern times, old buildings in modern times that have windows that are like archways that look like they're halfway underground, or maybe there's a set of steps that go down first and then you go into the door, as if
under the ground,
right?
yeah.
As if it's sunken below its foundation at
cities.
some point. Yeah,
A lot
like
of
in
cities have them, yeah.
Yeah, like especially in like Philly, there's a lot of buildings that look like that. However, there seems to be more than meets the eye. When it comes to these old buildings that have these windows and these doors, they also look to photos that kind of strip away the foundation beneath the ground, and it looks like a lot of the windows go further down than they should, as if they go underground. And they ask the question, well, what is the point of that? Why would they build these windows so deep and then cover them up with the foundation? And sometimes they'll also find photos where it looks like there's a set of, like there's the stairs and then the door, and then beneath that is another door. And they ask the question, well, why is it this way? Why is the foundation what's supposed to be the level, the street level? Why is there more beneath it? Right, that there's this whole other 3 feet of this window. What is it for? That it's underground. So they look at this as evidence, and they point to that and say, well, then there must have been some sort of great flood of mud that covered buildings up to this level. And during that time, what they'll say is, we either kept them the way they were to keep it covered up or dug them out at some point.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, why, if there was a great mud flood, why wouldn't you just like uncover your house?
Yeah, just dig it out.
Just take it out.
Well, it was a substantial amount of mud. But so
3 feet.
yeah, well, it depends. In some areas, in some of the pictures, it looks more like it could be, 20, 30 feet.
Oh,
like
okay.
it's a lot of mud.
It's a whole house.
Yeah. So, well, have you ever seen photos of like some older cities, maybe even in New York or in Paris, especially? They have whole underground cities that have existed before. So they look at that as evidence too, that there's like cities built on top of cities, and that there's like an underground. So
Like
if you
the
go
I need to
underground,
look these pictures up.
like the catacombs.
I've never seen
yeah,
these
like the
pictures.
catacombs.
Okay,
Or if you look
okay.
at think of like some of the old train stations that are left below ground, like subway
Abandoned,
theories that are
yeah.
abandoned, and there's like some buildings have looked like they just, again, in the photos. I don't know what's happening in the photos. I'm not an architecture expert. I wouldn't claim
What?
to be. These
And we let him on our podcast.
unbelievable. I took a CAD class in high school, so
I know what a window is.
yeah. I know how to explain a door and a set of stairs. So the windows go much deeper into the earth, and sometimes even reveal doors below what should be the surface level of the building. Using Salt Lake Temple in Utah as an example, you can find photos of its apparent construction. However, you can only see it being worked on from about halfway up, right? It's not being worked on from like the ground up. It's being constructed from like just the top half.
What's visible now?
Right. So they look at that and say, well, the construction of the Salt Lake Temple during renovations revealed windows that went deeper.
Like the Mormon temple.
Yeah, I believe that's what it is.
Are they Mormon?
Are they Mormon? Or are they dancers? So the windows go deeper than they should. It looks like there's extra doors, but again, they're just pointing and saying, "Hey, look." But then they say, "Well, you can't find photos of it being built, and the only construction photos we have of it, not video, the only construction photos we have of it are like it's only the top half being worked on. And look, there's all these trees around it, and so they usually level all that before they work on it.
Are
So-
the trees like half in the mud too?
Well, that actually goes into backtracks over into the giant theory that like there are giant trees that are covered up and like mountains and stuff like that are trees. But
I saw that
no,
theory.
they don't talk about trees being
You say
covered
mountains
up.
are trees?
Mountains are trees, yes.
Yeah,
What?
if you look at like certain pictures of mountains,
Bonus theory.
Excuse me.
if you look at certain pictures of mountains and then next to it like a tree trunk like chopped off, sometimes they look very similar. Just
Write that down. Write
I'll
that one.
show
You
you
can do
some
that one.
photos later.
I
Yeah,
was like, oh, what did you just say?
yeah.
to me?
No, I've heard that before.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
You're on your
stuff.
second mud flood.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
So they use Salt Lake City Temple as an example because of the photos. But there's other areas like I think at the Capitol building in St. Louis, they point to that one because it's like up on a hill, nothing's level, but they're only this is the construction photos of it of being worked on, but it's only from like the top half of it, and there's all these trees around it. So when did they level the area to build this? They must not have. They must have inherited it from the Tartarians, right? That suffered from this mud flood and are working on it, renovating it, bringing it back to life, and then claiming it as theirs.
No, when you say that they're remodeling like the top half of it, I'm picturing in my head, I don't know how you would be able to remodel the bottom half of it if it's kind of, for the most part, underground.
Right. So they can excavate the building around it. And I can show you pictures I have.
So they're just talking about like digging back some of the ground away from the building and then remodeling the entire thing.
Yeah. So what they're talking about in this is like, you have the Salt Lake City Temple, what it looks like, real big and huge,
Yeah.
pointy, and they have pictures of it during some renovations, like I think in like the 1940s, 1950s. I'd have to look at that exact number, but they were renovating it and they dug away, they excavated around the building.
Okay.
And that's when they revealed like, oh, there's deeper windows here and stuff. So it
they
looks like it
already
used to
did
be a taller building.
excavate the bottom.
Well, that was
part
much
of it.
later.
Okay.
And then when it was constructed, so the temple was built in 1893.
Okay.
And much later, that's when they did the renovation.
Which is really crazy too, because you said 1893. And that is the very end of the 1800s. So, like, I mean, obviously, up until extremely recently is when this theory would have
Is there
ended.
any connection between like Mormons and
And the mud floods?
yeah, not the mud floods, but or like the whatever they're called, the Tarians or
Tartarians?
Tartarians.
Well, I'll get into that a little bit later. So I'm going to finish out with the evidence for the mud floods themselves, and then I'll go into Tartaria, because Tartaria is far more interesting than the mud floods, because that I feel like Tartaria kind of started it, and then the mud floods came after, like in the realm of the theories.
Okay.
So you actually see that as a common theme when looking at evidence for the mud floods, is great tall buildings being worked on, but never at the start of construction, only towards like what would be the end of construction, like on the top halves of the buildings. And oftentimes the renovation photos of these buildings, you may find that they too have what appears to be windows and doors that exceed what should be the surface level of the building. Did these buildings at their original construction used to sit higher than they do now? And why do all the buildings in St. Petersburg, for example, seem to be to have half covered windows and doors? Some people also point to old photos. This is another, again, this is why it's so like strange, is they'll just pull pictures of people working on streets that seem to be covered in mud and dirt and debris. Generally, it looks like they're working on building roads or something like that. But to them, they're removing mud and debris from the mud floods from these buildings, and they're trying to clear them up. And they say, like, look at these buildings; they're so old compared to these people, and extravagant. But these people only have mud roads and horse and buggy, but look at these giant feats of construction they've completed, pointing to things like the Capitol buildings and these just even buildings like the Taj Mahal they'll point to, and any domed topped great building really. So they'll point to all of them and then point to the people in the streets and how impoverished they look, and what they'll pull from that is that was the mud flood, and these buildings didn't belong to these people, and they were
more for the giants,
right? For the Tartarians, yeah. That is what they. So the mud flood basically is that. I mean, it's very simple, very clean and laid out. There's nothing like from geologists or anything like that that you can point to. You can look up in history now. There are people I was looking into that go deep into ancient history and say that there were mud floods that wiped out civilizations. And when you think about what a mud flood is or what a mudslide is, mudslides are terrifying things to have to endure. So is it possible that a giant form of that could have occurred and wiped out a large swath of land? I'm sure, but enough to flood the entire world? I don't know. I wouldn't think so. I mean, that's a lot of mud. Where did all the mud go?
Where did all the mud go?
So that brings me to Tartaria, which I was saying is far more interesting than the mud flood. So Tartaria, speaking of great old buildings and mud-covered streets, Tartaria was allegedly a widespread superpower that existed up until the 1900s. They were highly civilized and highly advanced in their technology, and they were also attributed to the beautiful architecture found on large, beautiful buildings found around the world. So from buildings like the Singer Building in New York, or the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank in China, or the temporary World's Fairgrounds from the early 1900s, 1915, that were temporarily set up for the World's Fairs, which were, if you remember, there were like big events held for the populations. It's like the future.
Yeah, I watched videos on them. Never mentioned them. And the videos show the construction of them from the bottom up.
Right. The temporary grounds that looked like almost like Greece or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very fancy.
They're like lands of the future. Like,
yeah.
And they're like, oh, look at this new technology we have on display. An electric washer. or the smart kitchen, which is like a Lazy Susan.
Yes.
Wait, that's what...
I still look at Lazy Susans and also...
That was what the World Fair was. It was a demonstration of technology of the future, and it was...
Lazy.
But it's all the stuff that we have today. Like, it's like... It's like refrigerators, like ice makers, electric washing machines, all that kind of stuff, like the car. The automotive industry was a big sponsor of the World's Fair, like GE and Ford.
So some people even claim that some of the world's wonders were also built by the Tartarians. The Great Pyramids and even the Great Wall of China are often attributed to them as well.
You got to keep those giants out with a big wall.
Well, actually, they spun it around the other way, that the Tartarians built the wall to keep Chinese people
keep all
out.
the little people out.
Yeah, to keep the Chinese out. Whereas we know in history, the Chinese built the wall to keep the like barbarian tribes
like
out.
the Mongols.
Yeah. So
interesting.
yes,
I
the
like this theory.
fact that the buildings of similar design, like the domed tops, the pillars, and the overall extravagant design and appearance, they're found on all corners of the globe. Like they're found in the States, like when you look at the White House, or you look at the state capitol buildings, or you look at like the Singer's Tower, or if you go to China, like I was saying, these great big banks when like
So like all the 7 wonders, like
possibly.
The fancy construction of
like
the time.
like the gardens and
Yeah. Like think of any giant amphitheater, or like you look at like ancient
Colosseum.
Greece, the
Yeah.
Colosseum.
I'm just literally picturing the Pantheon. It's a big giant.
Yeah.
It's a big giant like outdoor room with big pillars, and that's it.
Yeah. And so these buildings were often like referred to as like the Gilded Age, especially like the gold domed temples and things like that you find. That people believe that architecture comes from Tartary, that Tartarians are responsible for all of that architecture.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense because, I mean, everybody, even today, it was like, well, how is anybody able to build this or put this together or lift this when you didn't have the technology that we have today to have a huge machine jack this thing up and place it on top of
even with
rock?
modern technology, for example, the pyramids, people say, well, we really can't recreate that. We can't do that unless it's a Bass Pro Shop.
Because like, it's high. I mean, I
And they
don't even
put the
think
hat
some
on
of our
top.
machinery today could reach and put rocks on top of other rocks that high up in the sky.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy feat what they did, and I don't think I think the jury's out on whether or not they had help by aliens. It's a whole nother,
Yes.
podcast.
Yeah, I think the current theory is like a lot of slaves, possibly aliens.
Yeah.
Dragging big rocks.
They even go and like, well, if you used a bunch of slaves and they weren't like well fed and kept, then they wouldn't have been able to do it. So
They wouldn't have the energy.
it was like,
yeah.
I mean, to tangent off of this for a little bit, I think that it was just highly skilled people because people had highly skilled things to do. Modern people are so lazy in comparison.
That's very true.
That we don't have highly skilled people. Like it was just like hey, can you carve a stone? Like, yeah, of course I can. What do you mean?
Well, they were high. The stonemasons were highly skilled people, and they had different degrees, and that's all they did. And
Yeah.
So they were very good at it.
They were
So
very
that's why
good at it.
That's why there's like, oh, we could never do that. It's like, no, you could. You just don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to do that. It's hot outside. It's hot outside.
Or maybe it was the Tartarians. Who knows?
I think it was just hot because it was Egypt.
It's true. Definitely true. So, Tartary, that's why they think that Tartary was. So actually, if you go back to like the 1700s, like, and you look at maps, and this is where some truth of it comes in and why it's so interesting, is that there was a great portion of the world actually referred to as Tartary or Greater Tartaria. And it encompassed some of like Eastern Europe, Russia, some of Southern Asia, like all of that area was actually just referred to in English literature and cartography as Greater Tartaria.
Okay.
And then it was later subdivided into like Greater Tartaria and then Chinese Tartaria and Manchurian
So
Tartaria.
each country basically had their own division of this Tartaria.
Right.
Or the...
But so people believe, so historians will say that it was actually just what they referenced it as. It was just that because they didn't have a name for it. So they just called it Tartaria, right? And that's just like from English people. That's what they refer to anybody from that area as a Tartar, a Tartarian, and they call
Just like people
Tartarian.
called people that were like not like uncivilized or like the barbarians, like pagans.
Right. Well, yeah. What
like
I
pagans.
said earlier, the pagans,
Yeah.
the barbarians, the whatever you want to call the
It's just
savages.
the others.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they referred to them as Tartarians. So that's where like the truth of it comes in, and there is maps that reference Tartaria, and there is literature that references Tartaria,
Like
But-
older maps? Like,
yeah,
or-
from like the
okay.
1700s
So
and back.
people are like, well, obviously it was talked about, it was on maps at that point. Where is it now?
Right, so that's how they justify it. But there's a lot of places on old maps that don't exist anymore.
It's very true.
Constantinople, right, was what is the song from? Ironically, They Might Be Giants.
Yeah. Dun, 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 it's not Constantinople. Dun, dun, that one.
Istanbul is not Constantinople now.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, there's just places that are just no longer on the map, and that's fine. It's because they got changed.
And it happens today. Towns change their names all the time.
We're gonna probably have to redraw maps soon because of what's happening in our current events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's just the reality of the world.
You're just going to erase Russia off of it.
Lines shift, hopefully. Lines get shifted and turn it back to Tartaria.
Mm-hmm.
Make Tartaria great again.
Oh my God, that's a shirt. Write it down.
So
that's it.
The deeper you
First
get,
merch.
the deeper you get into this theory, you will also start to find that people believe that the inhabitants of Tartary were in fact giants, as we were talking about, and that people lived amongst giants at this time. This is how they explain away the massive doors and frames leading into these buildings, or how these great feats were even accomplished in the first place, seeing as the technology we supposedly had, we just talked about this, at the time would have made it an impossible feat, i.e. the pyramids. I'm not going to go much deeper into the theory of giants because that can be spoken about more in length on another episode, as there is a lot to unpack there, just because there's a whole ton of theories on the giants and the giant cover-up and, how the government is involved with that. So there's a whole other rabbit hole from that. And just if you need to, Google and ask yourself, what happened to the missing giant bones from the Smithsonian in the 1900s? So, yeah, if you need a place to start that rabbit hole. So let's bring it both together, Tartary and the mud floods. What happened to this massive superpower that ruled over most of the world as early as the 1800s, only a few hundred years ago? And why do we not know much more about them? This is, for me, where the theory begins to crack at the seams and reveal its unsavory guts. This is where claims made start to lose their traction. And according to theories, one or two or both of these things happened as to what happened to Tartary. First was the mud floods. Due to either a large amount of rain, deforestation, or an act of God, most of the world was covered in a substantial amount of mud. I like the scientific explanations as there could have been this great period of rain, which if you look back through around that time in the 1800s, there was a large period of rain that it just rained and rained and rained and rained. So that could have led to massive mudslides. That combined with deforestation, trying to consume resources. So most of the world was covered in a substantial amount of mud. This rolled through the world and covered buildings and streets in mud, apparently leaving the Tartarians and their technology lost in the world. While mudslides can certainly be devastating and alcoholic, forces of nature destroying anything that lay in its path, the explanation examples used in most of what I could find for evidence were hardly buried in mud, and certainly not enough to wipe out a supposed race of giants in the process. If it was not that deep, right? Overall, 20 feet is deep, but we're talking about giants here. How did the giants
not be able to survive?
How did the giants die and the short people live?
That is like the one
That's
thing.
like the big thing that stands out to me. So maybe that rules out the giant side of the theory. And
maybe the smaller people were more prepared for a disaster like that, where the giants are like, oh, nothing's going to affect us.
They just went with the flow, and they're like,
yeah.
wee.
And the giants tried to fight it and died. Yeah. No, so that's where it falls apart for me, for the giant side of the theory. So maybe there weren't giants. Maybe there were taller people. Maybe there were
Well, wouldn't there be more bones from giants? Because
the Smithsonian.
because the Earth is really good at preserving things.
Well,
Right.
I mean, under 20 feet of mud, you're not going to find anything.
So that's where the rabbit hole kind of starts for the giant theory, is that there are and have been bones found, but they're immediately covered up and taken off of the record.
Covered up by more dirt.
I was reading, and now, of course, you don't read the comments too often when you're looking at these threads and stuff, because that's where you get to the real crazy stuff. But somebody was posting, he's like, me and my friend were exploring the woods, and we went way off the path, and we found this mound, and we dug into this mound, and as we were digging, we found the largest femur bone I've ever seen, and then we were surrounded by the feds. And I was like, were you though? I don't know. See that you can't substantiate that to me. There's no dates, times, whatever. So it's like somebody saying, I was abducted by aliens. It's like, were you, or did you just tell me that
need more
story?
facts to go along with this.
So that's where the second and more believable thing comes into play, is that either there was a mud flood and that assisted in the destroying of the Tartarians, whereas the nation of Tartaria was weakened, we non-Tartarians took the initiative to use World War I and World War II as a way to destroy any evidence that this great country of Tartary ever existed by bombing and destroying old historical buildings in the name of freedom. They were able to successfully keep any of the true history from public eyes and knowledge, as well as doing things, staging these events called the World's Fairs in 1915 to set up the facade of these temporary buildings that the believers believe that, in fact, these temporary buildings, these were actually cities. These were actually capital cities for the Tartarians because they were so extravagant and well built supposedly, and just beautiful, beautiful works of architecture. And how could possibly measly little humans be possible of recreating anything like that? So they would hold these events, sell them confectionaries and ideas of the future, and then quickly plow the whole thing down afterwards as a way to just cover up that we're really just destroying this. Again, to me, this all just seems a little too complicated and convenient to feed into the theory. I don't necessarily believe in the theory at all. There are some interesting things that come up from this theory that you think about. And if you go down the mud floods rabbit hole, you do learn some things about ancient history that can coincide with actual erasure of history and lost knowledge, which we know happens. There's no way you can preserve every bit of history from, 0 AD and on.
And history is written by the winners.
That's true.
So what is it that you don't believe about this theory? Because I feel like this theory has multiple layers to it. So is it like the giants, or is it the entire theory start to finish, or is it like maybe how they were killed off, or like the time period? I
don't believe that Tartaria was a huge super powerful worldwide superpower.
Okay.
I don't believe that. I believe that exactly what it was. It's just lazy white people writing off their cartography and their history. We'll just refer to all of these people over here as one thing because we don't know what they are. So Tartaria. I believe that I can't say yes or no about giants because there's still so much to unpack there. And then I can't say yes or no to a mud flood entirely. A worldwide mud flood, no. That's too much. The world is massive. Yeah. If you covered the whole world in mud, you're not just talking about a reset, you're talking about a complete and total destruction of all life on Earth.
It's a new
Except
entire
for
planet.
Earthworms would live and reign supreme.
Right?
Especially like the fact that like a minuscule percent of the globe is actual land.
Yeah, right. There's so much water and mountains.
There's so much more water.
But the fact that there's water again too kind of destroys that theory. I mean, like obviously, like there wasn't enough mud to entirely fill up the ocean and or have the ocean rise on top of that. So
I think that in some areas there may have been some sort of giant mudslide that's destroyed things and erased things. I think that for sure happened. Whether or not there's a conspiracy being covered up about it, I don't think so.
Do we have enough like mountains to like have a mudslide that
maybe
covers?
Maybe not anymore.
That's true. They're all trees.
They turned into mud.
They're all trees.
Yes, they're all trees.
I'm just never gonna get over that.
I'm not. I don't
look at the redwoods and then look at like there's like these flat cut mountains that look just like tree stumps. It's a whole you'll get into it. It's good.
Allison will do that one.
Yes. So the other part about it is that this is the type of theory that, because it derived from the internet, is very somebody from one of my sources, from the Bloomberg source that I have, referred to it as the QAnon of architectural conspiracy theory, because it is so sporadic in its information. It's just that because there's no direct, real written evidence to point to, or any experience or anything to point to, that is just an amalgamation of information, people taking things left and right and taking whatever fits their narrative to explain away this theory. And the fact that it's gained so much traction in 2018, especially, is that time period between 2016, 2020, and to today, really, honestly, starting at 2016 to 2020, the internet became a very volatile, strange, and archaic, crazy place where conspiracy theories and non-conspiracy theories, everything just kind of went rampant and out of control. And we're going to get a lot of hate from people talking and dismissing conspiracy theories in general, but that a lot of them come from this.
Well, a lot of people who didn't have a voice had a voice during that time period.
Right. So, and it spurred a lot of very interesting things to think about, whether those things ended up panning out true or not. This is one of those things that came from that. And so don't look at it with this astute point of view where it's like, oh, there's scientists and things that are backing this. Because currently I couldn't find any real ones, any real sources that were from a substantiated person. But and also they're the people that tout some of these more outlandish conspiracy theories also talk about some of the things that are very anti-Semitic and things like that of that nature and sort of racist. So that this theory is talked alongside about in those types of circles. Not I'm not saying people that believe in this theory or back this theory or have heard about this theory back that sort of ideology, just that to recognize that the people that are in that circle are talking about those other things, like George Soros and the Rothschilds and things like that. Now, those are all completely different theories that I'm sure will come up at some other different points, but that is the overall gist of Tartaria and the mud floods. And one of the more recent newer theories that I think is very interesting to look at and get kind of a different perspective on today versus some of the theories that have been around for a very long time and are so much more substantiated. Yeah. But the fact that I think the biggest thing to take from this is that there are a lot of people who just believe it. And the last episode that I listened to when this one airs is the Flat Earth Donald Trump one.
Yes.
So the flat earth theory kind of is there's a lot of parallels between the flat earth theory and the mud flood theories. There's a lot of parallels in how people just are like, well, I heard it all. Like that makes sense to me, so I believe it. So just be careful with conspiracy theories and what you believe, because it's not enough to erase your entire understanding of history over just these mud floods. But maybe it happened. Maybe it didn't.
It's just one of those
we
things
don't know.
It's just one of those things that I think here's another perspective on it. So don't rule out one or the other.
No.
Keep an open mind to everything, but
Always.
know that what you're always told may not always be fact.
So how do I prep for a mud flood?
Don't go underground. Get a boat.
Get tall basement windows.
I feel like it'd be safest.
Don't be a giant.
Yeah,
Like
don't be a
it's
giant.
safest in the
Clearly.
middle of the
Tall
ocean for a
basement
mud
wind.
flood. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
but-
maybe in the ocean would probably, because then there's more place for the mud.
Or
to
like
disperse.
I'll sit on the beach. It'll be like the opposite of Deep Impact, the movie. I'll sit on the beach.
You're going out into the ocean instead of the
I'll get my little raft, and then I'll just go out into the ocean, and I'll wash back on shore.
Again, not to dismiss the theory or anybody like that, but yeah, keep an open mind. Think about it. Is it possible that there was this great nation called Tartaria that ruled over most of the world? When you look at the architecture and how similar it is around the world, yes. Or maybe you just are staying away from the ugly truth of colonization and how how we spread our influence around the entire world. So, yeah, stuff to think about.
No, when was the first time that you heard about this theory? Because like Dan and I have never heard of it before, but like
Pretty recently.
okay,
Yeah. I heard about it maybe a few months ago.
was there like somebody discussing it, or was it a documentary
no,
that you saw?
as I started off with, I'm an avid user of the internet. So
Love that, yeah.
I end up down some rabbit holes. And so like everything that you guys have talked to on about up to this point on your show, I've read about at some point. So that's why it's very interesting for me. I'm like, yeah, I know about this stuff. I love this. This is great. This is my kind of entertainment. Because I mean, truly it is. I just love those like different things to get into your brain and just kind of
it just makes you think.
yeah, you think about different perspectives of what could have like alternative versions of it's the
Dan
mud
is
flood.
loving his mud flood over there. Damn.
Dan's a little drunk.
How to prepare for a mud flood? Drink it.
Get a big straw.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's again, I just love this kind of material and listening to it and learning more about things like I didn't know everything that you were talking about with the Donald Trump, the time travel Donald Trump time traveler, or
Talking about the Donald Trump.
yeah. Or everything that happened. I knew very little about the John Benet Ramsey story. I knew like I've read about that, and there's so much.
They make
more
a lot
that
more.
happens with
They
celebrities.
they make a lot more jokes about it than
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes,
I
I
think-
knew of it, but I didn't know the theory.
And I think that
That was
one
very
too is
interesting.
definitely one that we can cover from another perspective too, and not just the fact that like John Benet is Katy Perry, but we could also cover.
Katy Perry
Her-
is John Benet.
Well, I was gonna say her death, but there's a lot of conspiracies surrounding her death as well.
Right.
So
Yeah, and that's one of them.
That's the problem with conspiracy theories. Problem maybe not is that the rabbit holes and like the many rabbit holes.
Well, that just
like,
means
Yes.
more episodes for us.
That's
I
more
mean, I
content.
think on the
More
Titanic
content.
one we covered 3 of them, but I know that
there's
like
so much.
7 maybe
So
8.
much.
Yeah, that's going to be like part 8, 9, 10.
I know.
for
We
the-
honestly could continue every one that we've touched on so far. We can continue and go on to another like.
doing
tangent.
research for mine. I think I even told you, I was like, when I was reading it, I was making side notes. I was like, oh, this is another one to look into, just based off of this theory.
Well, then now all of these streaming services too, like I know Netflix, for instance, they have
Hulu
so
loves their
many documentaries on individuals. They have documentaries on like there's one Netflix has a cult conspiracy, well, not conspiracy, but a cult documentary now, and each episode is a different cult story. So,
Are you done?
Yeah. Okay. I'm just sipping on my mud flood.
I was listening to a podcast. I think it was My Favorite Murder, and they were talking about what they were watching recently.
okay,
One of them was, I want to say the show is called Documentary Now.
that's a show.
It's a show, but it's more like an anthology show, and I might be misremembering what it's actually called, but it's like an anthology. It's like a mockumentary, so like each episode's a different cult, but it's like a documentary, but it's a mockumentary.
Oh, that sounds so funny.
Yeah.
Wait, so like meaning they're like
The
fun
Office.
of it?
No, like The Office, like
Okay.
it's a fake documentary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought like mocking it.
No. Well, they're mocking the fact that it's a documentary, but it sounded actually really interesting, and I want to watch it.
Check it out, yeah.
What'd you say it was on?
I don't know.
What's it called?
could be wrong.
So we'll never.
I think
find
it's called
it.
Documentary Now,
Okay.
Okay.
and I'm going to look at it. Talk amongst yourselves. So I'm going to look it up.
It makes me think. Have you ever seen Drunk History?
I love
Drunk
Drunk
History.
History.
It kind of gives you the way he's describing it. Anyway, it's giving me Drunk History vibes, where they're kind of like making fun of like historical time periods,
You
but
guys
like
could do that with this, like have special episodes where you're like, it's conspiracy happy hour, but that was an hour ago.
Oh.
We're hammered now.
Hold up, it is called Documentary Now, and your
I feel
favorite.
like that's what this episode was.
you like Bill Hader?
I don't know who is he.
Okay, never mind.
I'm bad with names. Like somebody will like, oh, do you like this person?
Well, it is called Documentary Now, and it's from Saturday Night Live compatriots Fred Armisen, Bill Hader, and Seth Meyers serve as creators, executive producers, and writers. It was on IFC. Used their love of
IFC?
documentary films and combined it with comedy to present a unique take on the form. Hosted by Dame Helen Mirren. Oh, this is really good. And starring the two. Each episode is shot in a different documentary film style, paying tribute to some of the most important stories that didn't actually happen. SNL creators, blah, blah, blah. Lots of guest stars, blah, blah, blah.
Sounds fun.
Derek, I like your idea though. We could do like a drunk conspiracy.
Right. Yeah,
Every few episodes, we just get fucking wasted, and then we come up with like a basic conspiracy, maybe one that we've already covered.
We make up our own.
Well, no, like one we've already covered, so people know what the basis of the conspiracy is, and then from there, the drunk person has to try to retell the conspiracy.
Maybe we can do that for our next happy hour special.
Patreon.
That would be a good. Yes.
Yes.
Patreon.
Yes.
Listen to that. You could call it the after show or after.
I love
because
Oh,
it's like
conspiracy happy hour. After
we've already
dark.
drunk and now
Yes. Oh, okay.
Yes,
we
the-
get it.
the alcohol
so guys,
is working
you want
its
to join
way
our
through.
Patreon? This is where it's at.
Yeah, when we get that tier up there, you can join.
Hey,
We'll have like it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and then it's 10 o'clock somewhere. We've already been drinking for 5 hours.
Our tiers are just the clock.
that's funny.
Well, thank you, Derek, for sharing that story with us. I love that.
Oh no,
I've never heard of that
I
one.
have not either.
It's like I said, it's pretty new. It's
I'm like-
hot off the presses theory.
I like that one though.
You new theory heads wouldn't get it.
It
No, I'm all about those old theories.
It kind
Very
of makes me
hipster.
really want to look up like conspiracies surrounding giants now. Like there's got to be multiple theories based
The
on
tree
giants.
mountains
Yeah.
go into the giant theory
Yes.
as well. Yeah,
Yeah, I might
so
have to
giants
cover
actually show
those.
up in a lot of different conspiracy theories. This is what makes them so like interesting.
Well, the thing too is like they don't exist. They never existed. But then like even
Don't let them
like
hear
the,
you say that.
Well, I'm saying like even
Our
like
favorite
the
listener.
Bible references giants. So like that was I don't even know how long ago. I'm really not good with
every
Bible time
culture
periods. But
references giants in some capacity.
Like David and Goliath, for instance, is like the Bible story, and that was I don't know how long ago. Like I said, I really don't know the Bible time period. So they have like the AD and stuff, but I don't know when.
According to some of them, only 2,000 years ago.
Depending on which book you read.
Yeah. So, but like you said, all cultures have their own giant stories, and ones that are not just like, oh, well, let's go Jack and the Beanstalk style.
Well, it also makes you think. Well, you have to look at like fables and folklore and myths and all that stuff.
They were based on something,
right? Those are just the OG conspiracy theories. Like,
true.
Before there was conspiracy theories, there were people, like talking about like how islands got
Boy
named
Who Cried
and
Wolf.
like that.
Yeah.
I mean, look at. Are dragons real? Who knows? I mean, it's talked about in so many different cultures. They must have had something to base that off of.
Yeah, there must have been big lizards somewhere.
Right, real big lizards. Or they just like fantasized real big lizards while looking at little lizards. Who knows?
It was a group like
cloning machine.
Like they were taking something together.
Could be.
Yeah.
That's how Santa was invented.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's another good one that we could cover.
Santa
Claus. The man, the myth, the legend.
Have you guys covered any cryptids yet?
No, but I have one
Coming up. Okay.
Cryptids are a lot of
A
fun.
hometown one.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. As in the state we live in, but
So a home state
okay.
one.
Is it the home state one?
yes. The home state one, which is I've read about it before and it's very interesting.
Oh, the whole like premise and backstory of it?
Yeah, it's very
interesting.
cool.
Very cool.
I'm
stuff.
sitting over here thinking I know
it is
kind of
close to home. We're not too far from the Pine Barrens.
Barrens?
Okay, I
Yeah.
do know what they're talking about. I was like, I'm really hoping
Well,
I'm thinking of the same thing.
Like the entrance of the Pine Barrens is like the first. It's like where the expressway picks up.
Yeah.
So that actually is like a whole nother thing because like it's really cool to bring when you're talking about that one in particular, all the like folklore that surrounds it that have their own stories, like the blue hole. And stuff
the
like
blue
that.
holes are a big one too.
Yeah,
See, I don't know enough about that one. I wouldn't be able to cover it. I think
fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, Derek, for sure, we're gonna have you back on.
I will cover all the
You'll
New
need to,
Jersey
like,
based
yeah.
because I already did one. I did the one from North Jersey.
Yes, that one. That was a good one. I think that
Not-
might be the next episode that comes out, or like in 2 more episodes.
I think it's 2 more.
Okay. But that was a good one too.
Yeah, but I mean, by the time they hear this one, it'll be out. But,
It'll be out, yeah. You guys will be like, oh, that one?
Yeah, like
well, I guess we
dummies.
can kind of say it at this point. I mean, it was the letter. They've already heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I don't have anything else to say. I feel nice and loose and limber. I'll do some plugs.
So what did you think of our first happy hour?
I said I'll do some plugs.
That's all I said.
I love it.
You already did a plug at the beginning. You
I know.
can't
I
get
plug
any more.
Again. Plug in the end.
Yes.
Did I do a plug in the beginning? I just said
did.
I was from the same show as you.
And then you said it. That was a plug.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
Go ahead. What would you like to promote?
Now that I have a mud flood in me, no, I'm just saying I really enjoyed this experience. It's fun to just talk in this casual format and drink creative drinks, which was delicious. And
Yeah, we actually supply our host with the alcohol of these episodes. So y'all want to like
I didn't bring
reach out.
We're 1 for 1.
Yeah.
So, I really enjoyed just talking about conspiracy with conspiracy-minded people who are into the unknown and the mythos of the universe because real life is boring. So, talking about these things is
Makes
fun.
it a little more interesting.
Makes it a little bit more interesting. And what if it's true? Why does life have to be that boring? It doesn't have
Exactly.
Well, I am going to give you a minute to self-plug because I know like you've got, I don't know how many projects you have coming up that are out and in the open yet, but I know you have a few going on.
Yeah.
So
A lot
is
of
there
recorded.
is there anything, you already said you do Geckos and Grottos.
Yeah, so again, my name is Derek, and I am on the show Geckos and Grottos. It's a D&D-ish podcast. It's zany and fun and is really good for people who aren't that into D&D but want to try to maybe get started with something a little goofy. It's very goofy. As I said earlier, whether he likes it or not, Dan is also part of that show.
Yes, I am.
Whether he likes it or not, damn it.
And even in the early seasons, so was Allison. So
Yeah, I had the first season.
everybody here was involved with it at some point. And I do have some other projects in the works. There's another show coming out that is a more true to form D&D podcast for those who are more into D&D and like the
True
crunchy
campaign.
numbers. Yes, and want that story. It is a story following a group of brothers who were sucked into the world of Dungeons and Dragons against their will in a mission to find their missing brother. And
Like a Jumanji situation, right?
yeah, sort of
Sucked
like a
into the
reverse
game.
Jumanji.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess in the second Jumanji series, they're now in the game rather than the game in the world.
Okay.
But yeah, so they're in the game, and they're a dysfunctional group of brothers who do not like each other, learning to love each other once again, and kind of remember the good old days, and then kind of learn the purpose of family and closeness through the game, which is so it's a lot of fun. We're a few a few good sessions in, so we have lots of hours recorded already, and that is called Family Rolls. I don't have a time frame for when it's coming out, but soon I'm going to start editing it soon and getting it
I mean,
all
by the
taken
time
out.
this one comes out, it might be out. So.
Yeah, it might be out by this point, so
Look it up if
we'll
just in
redact
case.
that. Yeah, just look it up just in case.
I like the name of it though, Family Rolls.
Family Rolls. Yeah, it's
Cute.
it's a lot of fun. It's a little word play for a little role play.
Oh my God, get out.
I'll sell that. And that's it. There are other projects that I have in like the chamber that I'm ready to start working on and rolling out too, but I haven't discussed entirely with Geckos Media yet.
Yeah, I don't think I know any of the other ones.
There's just one more that's really got any legs to it, and
Is that the one that starts with a G?
what starts with a G? Oh no, not that one.
Oh, okay.
Not that one. that is a whole that is a whole nother thing. That's like a whole.
That's like your
an
life's work,
IP.
right?
Yeah.
Stop spoiling him.
I've been-
I only said a letter.
Spoiling
Yeah, the letter G.
I said one
Is that
letter.
a letter G
Allison
word.
is feeling the mud flow. So the other idea I had, and I'll pitch this idea to you guys too to see what you think. 'cause
Okay, I'm
the
ready.
more people involved, the better. The podcast is called 5 Minute Podcast.
I'm already sold.
There are people who do short format podcasts already, but there's nothing that I saw called 5 Minute Podcast, so we're not infringing on anything yet. You can edit this out if it's a too good of an idea, but I'm talking to you.
When I steal it.
Well, it depends on when you come out with it, because I don't want people to take it from you.
Right. So, but I'm pitching this to you live now. Anyway, 5 Minute Podcast is going.
I
to
think
be,
this technically counts as copyright.
right. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 5. It's verbal contract something.
Yes, no one can steal this. This is now copywritten to Derek Long
Yeah, don't
last
even
name.
try.
Bitch.
So it's basically a very short format between 5 and 10 minute podcast where you interview strangers, and the interview, not interview so much as give them a platform to talk about whatever they want to talk about, as long as it's okay to talk about, to an extent.
You have to vet them first.
For 5 minutes. Yeah, I mean, like, but here's the thing: is I'll let you talk for 5 minutes, but that doesn't guarantee you're going to make it onto the show. So
like, bring up
because-
like some like
It's like, I don't-
political, like
I wouldn't mind listening to. So here's the thing: to use the extremes of our time, I wouldn't mind doing a fight. Like, here's 5 minutes, and you're very pro Biden. Talk about it. Or here's 5 minutes, you're pro Trump. Talk about it. Right. So like, just to
Okay.
get these points of view and these perspectives from complete strangers who have nothing to do with anything out in the open, if they wanted to, and just to give people the opportunity and a platform to talk about other more important things. Maybe they have a new business that they came out with they want to talk about.
I kinda love this,
and plug
yeah.
it. And it's like a long form plug. Or maybe they're very passionate about a subject.
It's like a long TikTok.
Yeah. But here's my thing, right? And think about it: is what's popular right now in social media is short format
Short form.
videos. So short form videos is because it's all we have attention spans for anymore.
I was just gonna say that I don't have an attention span to listen for like hours and hours. So like 5 minutes is like you can listen to 4 episodes.
Right. So
and-
and you think about too, who are the people who are listening to podcasts are usually on a commute somewhere. Mm-hmm. But what do you listen to when you have a 5 minute commute? Right. You guys just let the radio play.
yeah,
Just
I
listen.
do. Yeah.
So, but it's like I don't want to listen to the radio. I want to listen to a podcast. What I can't fit.
That's
I don't.
your commercial break.
Right. To me, I don't want to listen to the podcast I listen to on a short ride because like they're longer podcasts, mostly D&D podcasts, or informative.
You need
podcasts
at least
and things
2
like that.
hours.
But I want time to listen to it and enjoy it because as soon as I'm out of the car, I'm done listening to it. I don't listen to podcasts really in the home unless I'm doing a project or something.
Agreed.
Like that. So I'm thinking for those short rides, something to listen to, a podcast to pull up and listen to.
I listened to a podcast that used to be weekly, and then they switched to like daily, which made their episodes between essentially 10 and like 15 minutes.
Right.
And I still listen to it, and it's nice. It's just a nice little
and it gives you something
consumption
to
for the day. It's like, and sometimes I even like listening to, I was like, I can get bang all these out, and like checks it off in my app. Like,
okay.
Because I'm a big checklist person, so I like when it listens and it goes away.
Yeah.
I like that idea though, because but
it's also good because people can like pick and choose. They're like, do I want to listen to this one? No, I don't have to. I'll go to the next one.
Right.
Yeah. But I like that idea just because, like, let's just say for like odd chances, whatever, somebody does want to go into political tangent. Well, it's just, I mean, it's kind of explaining your point of view, where you're coming from as to why you believe certain things or why you don't believe certain things. And it kind of gives people a chance to just get their word heard. People need to be heard sometimes, and I think that'll give them the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, where it came from was actually when we went to the convention, when we went to the South Jersey Geek Fest. Because I was thinking, like, what could a podcast booth do at a convention? I said, you could let somebody podcast for 5 minutes just to get an idea of like what they sound like. And I was like, oh, that's a podcast in of itself. Like, you just let people talk for 5 minutes. So you can do it at conventions, and they're like, hey, this is the Geckos Media booth. This is our show, 5-minute podcast. You have 5 minutes, 5 minutes plus minus whatever you can talk about, whatever you want. The platform is yours. Here's your 5-minute podcast. And then they do a quick introduction, who they are, what they're talking about, and then they talk. And it would sound like a podcast. It would be edited like a podcast. It would feel like a podcast, but it's only 5 minutes long. And it's only short form perspective. Like, I could easily talk about dogs and my philosophy on living like a dog in 5 minutes.
Have you ever seen the show Billy on the Street?
I've heard of Billy on the Street.
So it would be kind of like that, right? You go up to some random person, just, hey, what do you want to talk about?
I actually
you could do
watch a lot of TikToks of people that do this. They're like, they're in those schools. They're like, bop or flop.
Yeah, I think
pineapples.
You get a permit from the city, right? You get a permit from the city or from your local town. Go to a park or whatever. Set up a small booth and put up a sign. It's free for them. They don't have to do it. No paying, no anything. The only thing they have to do is sign a release form that we can use it on our show. That's it. And then once we get that, then literally the release form is just, we can use this on our show. Like that's I don't know how complicated the jargon has to get. But I think it would be a lot of fun. I think it would be really cool to just have that many different opinions out there in the world, because that's the only way to get to the truth. It's just have everybody's opinion out there so you can decide what makes sense and what
what's
doesn't.
your truth.
Yeah. What doesn't make sense here? People are good at vetting that out. You can just tell it, like giants.
Now, if you're going to get on there and like,
no,
this person's evil.
No.
I mean, like, that's probably one that would be monetized.
No calls for any sort of nothing like that. It's just speak your piece for 5 minutes, or like I said, plug your new store that you just opened up, a bagel shop, or promote a friend, or talk about mental health or something you're really passionate about. Talk about human rights, whatever you want to talk about.
I do love that. That's a really good idea.
I think it's a really fun idea. I think you could get a lot of different types of people.
You could like set the timer and all right, you got until the timer dings.
5 minutes, and then if you need a little bit of extra time, I give it to you. It's whatever.
Okay.
But, I'm not going to let you go on for 10 minutes is probably.
We're keeping it 5 minutes, people.
5 minutes or 6.
Love that though. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So that either edit that out or keep it, depending on if the show's out yet or not. If the show's out, go listen to it.
Yeah, we can keep an eye out for that one too. Yeah. So, well, I had a great time today.
I had a great time today.
Thank you so much for joining. You're our first guest.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Great theory, great alcohol.
Yeah. Oh.
Strong
Delicious
alcohol, but great alcohol.
Delicious mud flood.
I'm definitely feeling
it. This next episode's going to be great that you're recording.
Oh, yeah.
We are loose.
we are loose and ready to go.
Are you guys allowed to tell what your theory is for your next episode?
No, because the next theory has not come out at the point of this one. This one's going to be released first. So
I mean, to me, and you, not the crowd.
We can tell you after the fact, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so everybody's got to,
edit this out right now. This is just us talking now.
Right meow.
We'll just beep this part out.
Do you guys know what your theories are? Like each other's theory?
No.
Oh, so I don't.
So we'll never know. Like I'll never know his ahead of time. He'll never know mine ahead of time.
When do you reveal that?
When we record,
like as soon as you get into the episode.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So
so that's your actual reactions to hearing what your theory is. Cool. Okay,
yeah, we will tell Tim in the other room. We'll tell him both of our topics just to make sure they're not the same. The other person's not going to do that one.
Okay.
And then we go from there.
14 pages, huh? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's going to be a long episode. No,
I'm not a good essay writer.
It probably is not. It's probably going to be the same amount of time. I read fast. I talk fast. So.
Yeah.
All right.
But
well, yes, thank you, Derek.
for
Long
joining
last
us.
name. It was great having you.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to plug. I'm good.
well,
Good,
we're
good.
definitely going to have you back on another
Yes,
point.
you're
Maybe
definitely
we can
welcome
have you
back.
copy
Love to.
or cover the giant topic too. So, but
I can come up with. There's a lot of things floating around this noodle. So
love that.
yeah.
All right.
Well, we
Hey,
plan
Dan, you should come on our show, Geckos and Grottos.
Okay, I'll make an appearance.
Maybe you'll DM the next episode or something.
I think that's the plan. So
I've already been asked to be a part of that one.
You
Yes.
haven't? Oh, fun.
So I might.
Oh,
I
cool.
think we plan
Reunion.
on doing these happy hour episodes like every 5 episodes or
yeah,
so.
at least.
Oh, that's
just
fun.
to keep it.
Yeah,
I mean, every
I like
5,
that.
that's like
Just to
every
break it
2.5 months. So,
yeah.
but
There'll be
yeah,
a few a year.
yeah,
Cool,
there you go.
cool.
But I think this is fun. And then I definitely know a couple people who want to join us next. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a couple drinks already in the works for them based on the clue they gave us.
Just the clue, right?
The clue.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, if they show up,
They should.
Ashley Roselli. I'll edit it out.
Damn.
Yeah.
No, keep it in. No, okay.
Full last name.
Full last name. All right.
But yes, this was a great episode. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to go home now.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye.
We'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Conspiracy Happy Hour. Be sure to listen, follow, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Have a spooky story, conspiracy, or weird encounter that you would like to hear read in a future episode? Email your story to conspiracyhappyhour@gmail.com and follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at Conspiracy Happy Hour. This podcast is produced and edited by Geckos Media and is a part of the Geckos Media Network. Interested in starting your own podcast and not quite sure where to begin? Visit geckosmedia.com and sign up for a free one-on-one consultation. Until next time, see you.